that put a strain on your relationships at home? Because when people, the one thing I know about employee and owner, when you're employee, you can, not always, but you can leave at 5:30. You can put you can close the door, etc. When you're the owner, and I know this from my own personal experience, you sleepless nights, you're thinking about it, you're going home at 7 o'clock, you're bringing it to dinner. Did that put a strain on sort of family relationships, that sort of sector?
I suppose I can separate it a little bit. You're right, you don't switch off. One of the things I realised in a positive, so I don't want to switch off actually. I'm happy, I don't want to. I think that was the thing before. Maybe there were times that, it would stop and it would switch. I don't want to switch off. People talk about holidays. Oh, are you going to go and switch off for a bit? No, absolutely not. I don't want that to be the case. I hate the idea of switching off. So part of it was, there was a real plus there that I thought I can do this because I want to be like that. That was okay. But realising that I couldn't let that affect all my other relationships. That was me. I didn't want to do that, but other people would. So actually realising that there had to be that bit of separation there to say I can't bring this into other environments. That's got to be me. I've got to be able to manage that. I had plenty of support around me. I mean, absolutely. That wasn't me taking myself out and thinking I've got to do it on my own, but realising that I needed to use that support really kind of carefully in terms of what that looked like when I really needed it. But the great part was, I was that feeling of being wired effectively, naturally. It's like, I actually really love that.
So bring me up to date a bit, because then you went through a second MBO and then a third MBO. So talk me through those, because most people would think, okay, we'll just do one. And now it must be fairly stressful, and the changes.
A little, but change is the important thing there in terms of what we've needed over a period of time. So the buyouts that followed, different people in the business were involved in that first buyout. Yep. In fact, a lot more people over. We had some angel investment in at some point to really help us. That helped us financially, start to do some of the things we wanted to do at that point, which was great. So we exited that angel funding. And as part of that process as well, realising that I still had this drive for the business. I'd seen the business slip into lifestyle, and I knew I didn't want that to happen. So kind of the buyouts that we've been through since were conversations with teams in the business to say, I really want to take the business here. Who's really on this? Or who actually wants to say, you know what, this has been great, but it's time for me to take some reward out, sort of to do that and to step off at that point. And that's what the other pieces have, kind of have been around that. And part of that, obviously, the team has shrunk, sort of during that time. Because one of the things that was really difficult, at its peak, I think we're about 10, sort of 10 people very much involved in running the business and had that shareholding. That's really tough when everybody's kind of so involved. Everyone had such different ideas of not necessarily just around the business, but where they were in their lives. Some people needed to step back. Some people, for whatever reason, personal reasons, to them, would have a different outlook. And part of it was me having to go into the team sometimes and saying, I really want to be able to do this, and I think I can make this happen. This is how I think I can do it. Sometimes that conversation being really hard, because me having to say, but by the way, if nobody else wants to do that, if you think there's a different path that you want to be able to take, that's absolutely fine, but I don't think it's my path at that stage.
You mentioned as an introvert, are those conversations quite tough? Because I would find that quite difficult, going out to people and sort of saying, I'm going this way, if you're not really on board, we're going to have a difficult conversation. So how did you deal with that personally?
So in those ones, they are personal comments. They're tough, right? To sometimes be able to sort of sit down. But because of the way that I was going to talk about it, it started from a point of, this is what I'm trying to do. This is what I really want to be able to do. And for me, I can do that bit. That's the bit that I know I can absolutely do. So from a start point, it's a good bit. So none of those conversations have ever been massively controversial in terms of so they're tough, absolutely. But I knew the people that I was talking about. they were people, right? They weren't a barrier to anything. They weren't a number at that stage. These were people that I knew, so I could sit down and sort of say, and I knew what it would mean, in terms of, so actually tough, yes, but because of the nature of them, they were the right types of, they were the right thing. They were the right types of conversation. Better that than just leave it. The easy answer sometimes is not to make a decision. It's just to sit and see what happens and kind of. But that wouldn't be the right thing. So to actually be able to look at something like something needs to change.
Talking of change, you wrote an article 5 years ago today, literally this week, around outlining some of the leadership changes that you were going to make. I don't know if you're going to remember this because I haven't prepped you for it. Mm-hmm. Moving to C-suite and the promotions you were making at CAE as you push through the £100 million barrier.
Yep.
Now, I looked at that article and it's literally 5 years today. Literally.
Yes.
So I wanted to find out and ask how the business has evolved in those 5 years. Because I think you actually put a tagline at the bottom, here's to the next 5 years. So I almost want to pull you back 5 years and say, how's those 5 years gone and what is the next 5 years for CAE?
The business has changed. It's adapted, which is absolutely fantastic. I think being able to get to see the business through these different points, and there've been certain moments where that change, we felt that change. So if we look at 5 years ago actually and around that 100 million mark, the level of change in the business there, the way the business had to be managed, moving it from that very much owner managed piece to that wider management team, we had to do. That's tough. Got to trust in a whole load more people at that point, to be able to help make those decisions and make things happen. But if we didn't do that, we weren't going to change. So just like with the buyouts, if we didn't do it, we weren't going to change. And if we didn't change, that would be it. It would reach a point where we'd cease to be relevant. And the point of CAE at this point is its longevity, it's wanting to be able to do that. So that was absolutely one of those inflection points where we thought the business needs something different. We're at one of those right now. Right now, we're at one of those where we've had to do things like, I've had to bring a few more external people in actually, because we need that extra bit of knowledge and experience. We're having to change all our systems at the moment. We've got a massive systems project going on in the background because we need to change that. That's part of the next step. So many processes and everything like that, so much has to change for that to be able to happen. I don't think it's possible to have longevity to just reach a point and go, oh, it's all right, we've cracked it, got it, and that's going to last forever. It's just not. We're always looking at what the next 5 years looks like, and we're prepping for that. And we're starting to think about that. I talked to the business actually a couple of months ago. We talked about the mindset that we need to be in, which said from where we are now, if you're in the £100 million mindset of 5 years ago, my head and a whole number of people's in the business head is on 300 million in 5 years' time. So the gap between that thinking is 10 years worth of thought and at least a couple of £100 million worth of turnover. And that's a massive gap at that point in terms of what's going on. It's that wanting to think about the next, at no point just sitting and going, oh, we just need to pause for a minute. You can't pause in this industry.
It's too fast.
Way too fast. So you can't do that. So that was one of those moments, absolutely, where we had to really look at and change the whole feel of the business. And it's changed massively. When I started in CAE, it was great. You knew everybody, because it was only 20 odd people. You knew everything about them. You knew their pets, their kids, everything. Now that's changed. So we need to look at the ways in which we can do that and manage that and make that comfortable and keep going.